I'm lost in darkness, searching for light. Every step forward feels like a fight. Shadows of doubt creep in my mind, but I refuse to surrender. I must find a way to rise above the pain, to overcome, to break the chains. My existence is a test of will. I won't be broken, I'll stand still. The weight of the world crushes me down. Fear and uncertainty all around. But I deep find inner strength to face the trials length by length. A way to rise above the pain, to overcome, to break the chains. My existence is a test of will. I won't be broken, I'll stand still. Through every storm, I'll find my way. Through every night, a brighter day. I'll rise from ashes like a phoenix born. My spirit unbroken, my heart reborn. Day to day, nothing changes. All I want is a moment to think clearly, but thoughts come unrelenting, consuming every waking moment. My mind binds me and I can't escape. I shout for help when no one hears me. One day I fear I'll just disappear. Lost in this chaos, I'm searching for peace.
Oh, we are here. We are live. Welcome, everyone, from Dirt Sheet Radio all the way on down through the social media universe. It is your boys, the WCW gang, represent. Exactly. Faux live. Welcome. This is us talking about WCW Greed 2001. This was the final WCW pay-per-view event. A lot of people have bad memories about this era in general, and a lot of people weren't, ourselves included, looking too forward to this event. But
No.
guys, we're going to talk about it in a little bit, and I thought it actually wasn't necessarily as bad as everyone said it was. Hey, let's go around, let's introduce ourselves and see if we agree with that. Mack?
I'm Mack. You guys know me. And Nick, I agree with you. It wasn't that bad of a show. Importer things backstage could have been, cut out and shit. That kind of really dragged the show on. But overall, man, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I'm not going to say it's the best show in the world. We'll get into the review. But Sugar Robby.
Sugar Robby.
Yeah, like you guys said, definitely wasn't as bad as I remembered it. It was definitely not ECW December to Dismember bad.
Right.
It was one of those things where you had actually bright shining spots here and there. But overall, for this being the last ever WCW pay-per-view, as Max said, I honestly would give it a 6 out of 10 overall pay-per-view show. It was not that bad, but it was still a little bit on the grittier side of professional wrestling for sure.
Mm-hmm. I have to agree with that.
It was a shit sandwich, but a shit sandwich that had like condiments on it.
Yeah, you were allowed to have like a little ketchup and a little mustard on that sandwich.
Yeah.
And
Throw
honestly,
little pickles on there.
Yeah, and this is going to come as no surprise to anyone who's a WCW fan, but quite frankly, gentlemen, I thought that beyond a shadow of a doubt, the Cruiserweights held this show down and then some.
Dude, the opening match, the Shane Helms match, the Cruiserweight title match, like, I just don't understand how WCW just didn't take the cruiserweights and just run with them, put them in the main event, start off the show, just build the whole show around the cruiserweights, man, or give the cruiserweights their own show or do something, man.
Right. No, there's so much potential there, and it's unfortunate that the cruiserweight tag team titles were just recently at this point in time getting introduced because, man, imagine an era like in the 1997 cruiserweight division, if that's when they introduced cruiserweight tag team titles. I even wrote in my notes here, like, Villanos, Los Fabulosos, Psychosis and Ultimo Dragon, Malenko and Guerrero, Chavo and Hector, the Armstrongs, even like Disco and Alex Wright, or maybe La Parka and a steel chair. There's a lot of potential that you could have had with those cruiserweight tag team titles if they came a few years earlier.
Not only that, too, they could have brought that into the evasion angle as well, because literally not that long after these titles were unveiled, the inevitable happened, and that was Vince McMahon getting a hold of WCW shortly thereafter this pay-per-view. I'm surprised that they didn't carry those tag titles over, because imagine what we would have gotten in the invasion angle if they would have had to brought the cruiserweight tag team titles over.
Yeah, but that also goes to the point that I don't think Vince McMahon really cared about cruiserweight wrestling either, and if he did, it was just strictly Rey Mysterio when Rey came in 2002 because he was marketable, he had the mask, and those belts are looking like those look like belts like you go, oh, I'm not going to get that off of WWE.com. I'll order it off of eBay, and then it comes from India, and it's just the worst belt ever. But
yeah, I can't decide if I love those belts or if I hate the design, because when I look at them, I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. Like compared to like a lot of like the more modern tag belts. Oh, we just lost Mack on there.
Mack.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Hopefully that's not a sign of things to come. All right. There we go, Mac. Can you hear us still?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Sorry.
All right, you hear us?
It was Vince.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, perfect. Yeah, Vince had enough of us talking about WCW. But hey,
yeah.
Go on, Mac.
Yeah, Vince cut the stream. He's not doing anything right now, so
he's like, I can't talk about this. I owned it. All right, but hey, Sugar Robby, would you like to lead the way and tell us a little bit about the news coming up from April?
Oh, yeah.
This was late March going into April. We are a couple weeks away from WrestleMania X7.
Exactly, and one of the big things is, too,
Here, Robbie, let me try coming back in, Nick, okay?
All right.
Okay.
All right, right back.
A lot of the news that was surrounding, especially when it comes to the Wrestling Observer letter with Dave Meltzer, a lot of this news I was not shocked by was actually predicting a lot of the WCW downfall. Even dating back into December 18th of 2000, before 2001 even hit, it was being questioned that Brad Siegel, who at the time was the day-to-day operations for WCW at one point, was holding a meeting and then claiming that the company was going to be under for sale, but a lot of people were denying it. And a lot of questions were stirring to who was in control of the booking for WCW. A lot of names stirred around, like John Laurinaitis, aka Johnny Ace. Guys like Tony Schiavone was even put into this question. Terry Taylor. So a lot of that was concerning with starting on December 18th was who was in control. And there was even stuff saying about Eric Bischoff.
I still can't hear Robbie.
Uh-oh. But either way, even
Can you hear me, Nick?
Yeah, I can hear
we
you,
can hear you, Mac. Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, Robbie, I can't hear you, buddy.
Can everybody else hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Maybe Robbie needs to go out and come back in. Sorry, everybody. We're doing a new
a whole new
system here. So
streaming software. Rob, if you want to
Yeah.
try
Let's
leaving and coming
refresh
back in, I'll pick back up where you left off. But yeah, I mean, it ever goes to show that WCW is such a mess. Nobody knew who was in charge. The inmates are running the asylum practically. And on top of that, you've had a lot of different bookers over the years. Everyone talks about, Kevin Nash getting the book at a certain point. Everyone knows that, even for like the lower echelon shows, you had Jimmy Hart literally in the backstage of the old Saturday night tapings. And Jimmy Hart would literally go up to like two random wrestlers that were backstage and be like, you and you're going to have a match, and that's going to be this episode of Saturday night. So there's so many different moving parts, and the left hand doesn't always know what the right's doing in WCW, especially at this point.
Let's see if I can hear Robbie. Robbie?
All right, yeah. And
Yeah.
As we were saying, that's
All right, we're back.
Hear each other.
Lisa says she hears us too. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Hello, my mom. But otherwise, when it comes down to it as well, with Eric Bischoff too, there was been multiple reports from Dave Meltzer saying Eric Bischoff was going to do a WCW shutdown to go through a reset every time they were discussing a shutdown for WCW. It was getting nixed. So that has been one of the key things of it is, and honestly, leading into the downfall, I think it was going to be inevitable at this point. But what do you guys think about that part of the news there when it comes down to everything leading up to WCW shutting down and how Dave Meltzer, for once, was actually adding up the correct things at this point in time?
Robby, I don't know if you heard. I didn't hear you for like a good 2 minutes, but I don't know if you touched on it. But the overarching thing is that Fusion Media Group was going to buy WCW with Eric Bischoff.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Bischoff then lost television, and then Fusion Media Group backed out at the last minute. So what ended up happening was Eric Bischoff wanted to take Fusion Media and shut down WCW for a couple of months, and then come back with a show called The Big Bang, where he wanted to take, where allegedly, Meltzer reported this, I think maybe PW Torch had posted this at the time, saying that Eric Bischoff wanted to come back and center the main event scene around Rob Van Dam. And Rob Van Dam coming to the new WCW and having a big tournament and having Rob go very far in this tournament and maybe even possibly winning it and becoming a new WCW champion. I've heard conflicting reports saying that he was going to become the WCW champion, or he was going to get very far in the tournament and lose it to somebody and then feud with like a heel. But that's what I've read about the Fusion Media Group and Eric Bischoff's idea before it ultimately fell apart and WWE bought it for, the beans and the fucking extra button that they had in their pocket.
I mean, Mac, here's another point to add on to there. There were legitimate negotiations that went on, and it was very promising for Bischoff and Fusion to be able to acquire WCW, so much so that there were paid advertisements that are out there. I'm sure a lot of people have seen them for the Big Bang pay-per-view.
Big Bang, yep.
Yeah, I'll go and find that right now, actually, if you guys want to cover for that and keep talking on that.
Rob, have you seen the I can send it to you later after we get off the stream, but have you seen the WWE produced WCW house show vignette that they were going to run in Philadelphia?
No, I have not actually.
So it's a black and white vignette, and it has like it flashes WCW, and it shows like Jindrak, Stasiak, it shows a couple other guys, and it says like live Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, June 27th, 2001. But it did shine Shane McMahon in the promo, like him standing in the ring at the last WCW Nitro. So it was definitely a WWE produced house show that they were going to run for WCW. For whatever reason, it got canceled. People.
I wonder they probably went through the show and they just didn't want to tell us, and it's somewhere in the vault somewhere, like the old ECW house show.
It never happened. I looked it up. I did extensive research. It never happened because of that.
Cool.
And dude, you know what? And we're talking about revisionist history here with like WCW greed and people going, "Oh, it's one of the worst shows of all time."
Mm-hmm.
We have that also with. We also have that with the Booker T and Buff Bagwell match that they did on Raw when they changed the whole set to like WCW. That match wasn't bad. It was just that Vince McMahon didn't like it and sent out Angle and Austin out there to beat the shit out of Buff Bagwell and Booker T. And then Vince went, you know what? We're not doing this, because the plan was to do a draft lottery. The 2001 draft lottery was supposed to be Raw getting WCW and WCW wrestlers being drafted to Raw, which would then essentially turn into Nitro, and then SmackDown being Vince McMahon's show, and then doing the Monday Night War and, Friday night or Thursday Night War, whatever they were on. But that Booker T and Buff Bagwell match ended the whole They were like, nope, we're going to kill it. Nope, we're just doing an invasion angle, and then we're going to kill it in 5 months.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed too when it comes to the original WWE draft back in 2002. But if you look at it, obviously, the 2001 was the template for what became the WWE draft we all know and love to this day. But in that instance, in 2002, you can notice a majority of their acquisitions from ECW are on the Raw brand, and the majority of their acquisitions from WCW are on SmackDown. Also, I found the Big Bang pay-per-view advertisement right there.
There it is, yep.
Oh, wow.
And notice, too, the font is not that weird bird logo, so we were so close to the promised land, guys.
Yeah.
So close.
Yeah.
So close and yet so far. Hey, Randy, thanks for joining us. And also shout out to Travis on here saying Jeff Jarrett and Stevie Ray leading the NWO in this time. What MJF said about Jarrett was true.
But also, with other news, too, there's actually a thing that Meltzer did indeed report that was actually pertaining to our main event. And that was Diamond Dallas Page and Scott Steiner was actually supposed to work a match in a house show. But, however, that never came to fruition because why? They refused to work with each other. So they had to change a main event to a house show, because they didn't want to work with each other, and now we got them here. I wonder what was all that, because Meltzer really didn't go into depth on that. But hearing that this was the main event here, and then for that they didn't want to work each other on a house show, I wonder where everybody's heads was at that point, because that was kind of maybe some of that match we saw in that main event was a little bit of realism because they didn't want to work with each other.
Yeah,
Nick mentioned
that before the show even started, that there was a lot of tension between Diamond Dallas Page and Scott Steiner, because it looked like a lot of the stuff in the main event was stiff. The pipe shots were pretty weak, but there was a spot in the last stretch of the last 10 seconds of the match where Scott Steiner hits DDP with the title belt, and immediately, almost instantly, Diamond Dallas Page is just gushing blood everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nick, did you have any more on that on the feud between Big Papa Pump and Diamond Dallas?
Yeah, so there is a lot of reports that we picked up of Scott Steiner's erratic behavior around this time frame, and a lot of people being very much afraid of him. And a lot of people might point to his usage of steroids and whatnot. And quite frankly, remember, this is late period WCW. The inmates were running the asylum, like we've said.
No one cared.
And nobody cared anymore. So many people were no showing appearances, or you're getting super political in this new culture backstage that Hulk Hogan, of course, has helped cultivate. And, even though he's not around, his influence is still being felt towards the very end of WCW. And there's a lot of people who were afraid of Scott Steiner. There's a lot of people who didn't enjoy working with him and dealing with him in this time. And a lot of people have called both Steiner brothers bullies over the years, and especially here, you've got Scott Steiner, who's going into this as world champion. You've got Rick Steiner, who was the U.S. heavyweight champion. Both guys having title gold right up to the very end. As much as I like the Steiners as wrestlers, there's something to say when there's such a reputation that both these guys have, and not to say that's good or bad, but it's more of just kind of showing us that kind of historical perspective of there weren't many guys who really necessarily enjoyed working with them in this point in time. And DDP in particular, he was known to stand up for himself, but I mean, come on, we've seen how stiff those shots were in that main event, and we're going to talk about that shortly. Yeah, it got really brutal at the end there. And you look at the size difference between any normal person and Big Papa Pump. Yeah, I wouldn't want to pick a fight with him. I'm just like, man, we'll do whatever you want for this match. Let's just come on. Let's
Exactly.
And the crazy thing is too is that at this point, Scott Steiner is still very capable in the ring. He comes to the ring. He looks like he's going to explode out of his skin because he's so big, but he could move. The thing with Rick Steiner is when he came to the ring for this match, I had no recollection that he was the WCW United States Heavyweight Champion. That belt just looked so weird on him.
Right.
And Rick just could not move in that match with Booker T. He's blowing spots. You could tell Booker T, just being so good, exposes some of the older guys. Right. Which, when eventually we got the Scott Steiner versus Booker T match on the final Nitro, and Booker T won and kept the United States title, which he eventually brought over to WWE with the World Heavyweight title and gave it to Canyon. He had good matches with Scott because even though Scott was a menace and he was very big, he was very athletic and he was very agile. When I think of Rick Steiner, I think of like Rick Steiner, like in the green and black singlet, like moving around like a house of fire. This Rick Steiner coming out with the soy sauce colored beard and the soy sauce colored hair, like this just isn't it. That wasn't it for me, man. And I think Booker T really exposed him. And it wasn't Booker T doing anything that Booker T doesn't usually do. It was just he was so far above anything that was going on in the mid card in WCW, and the fact that they didn't pull the trigger on Booker T other than, once him having, or a couple of times of him having the title, but not really being in the main event it's just bad because we saw how good Booker T was up until like 2009 in the WWF. Like,
yeah,
dude, give that guy he was obviously the franchise player.
Yeah, Booker T, you could tell he's one of the few guys that was still there who actually cared. He gave a crap about what he did and what the company was doing.
Yeah.
And I even wrote in my notes here that Booker was the saving grace for that match, whatever it was with Rick Steiner. But yeah, like I said, we're going to be getting over into that match and all the others shortly. Robby, do you have any final aspects of news before we jump on into this pay-per-view?
And for the news here, these last things, I'm gonna just start listing down on this one.
Rapid fire.
February 5th of 2001, WCW ends up letting go Tigress, Paisley, Major Guns, Leah Meow, and Daphne, which is pretty surprising. And this is in February 5th of 2001, especially with Daphne, who was a sole part of the WCW's women's division that was pretty much non-existent throughout the whole World Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
As well as the week after that, it was being reported by Meltzer that WCW business as a whole, all their numbers were skyrocketing way down. Attendance was down. Pay-per-view buy rates were down. Any sort of revenue that WCW tried to steam up, it just didn't work. That business was going way down to the thing. The third thing is, this one is a little bit of a surpriser. I don't know if you all heard about this one. And that is Roddy Piper went and sued WCW for $1.4 million.
They didn't have it.
Sorry, Hot Rod.
And then for these last two, at this point in time, one of these things is that Mallrats was being rumored with Eazy-E being the head for Mallrats, as everybody... Matt Rats, my bad, not Mallrats. Matt Rats over in Canada, that was run by good old Harry Smith and Teddy Hart. That was just greenlit at this point in time. A lot of people were speculating whether or not Eric Bischoff had also part ownership into Matt Rats, which for those who don't know what Matt Rats is, this was basically a way for high schoolers or middle schoolers to get up on Canadian television and just wrestle. And then for these last two, WCW on and off screen, production, everything else, it was all going down. There was a lot of turmoil through everybody. Everything was starting to collapse right before this pay-per-view. And Dave Meltzer also had said at this point that professional wrestling was in a dangerous state at this time with WCW and ECW going up for sale. And that is your news.
Man, it's almost like this company dies in 15 days, huh?
Exactly.
It's almost like this is going to be the last pay-per-view by that.
Yeah.
You mean the Big Bang's not going to happen in a couple months?
You mean Rob Van Dam's not going to be the WCW World Heavyweight Champion?
Can you imagine that, though? That would have been awesome.
Yeah, cool. You know what, dude? And
he was in WCW before, too. Remember that?
Yeah.
I'm dressed like the Sandman today, so I don't want to. I don't want.
You mean Hardcore Hack?
Maybe one of these days we should. Yeah, Hardcore Hack. Yeah, that's not canon. We don't talk about him being his next door neighbor. Raven was never rich. You shut up, Nick. No, you shut up, Nick. It's not canon. Yeah, we'll get into it one day, but maybe one day we'll pop up on here and be like, "Welcome to the Hardcore Heaven '97 review." Just scare you guys.
Hopefully
but,
one day.
The number one thing about it is that like Eric Bischoff, he has said in interviews, we were looking for young guys, and there were a lot of young guys coming out of ECW when ECW closed, and we wanted to do like, he's like, we had spent so long doing the old guard of like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and Hulk Hogan and Scott Steiner. He's like, I want to do something with the young guys. And Eric Bischoff, you know, for what he's turned into, which is pretty much a POS the past couple of years, back then had the foresight to be like, look, Rob Van Dam is one of the most up-and-coming wrestlers here that is in the industry. And the fact that the Big Bang didn't happen and we never saw Eric Bischoff's vision of what Rob Van Dam could have been, and then Rob going to WWE and then not getting that opportunity to be champion for another 5 years after he joined WWE, which was One Night Stand 2005. Yeah, I mean, I really wish that I could see the alternative timeline where WCW stayed in business, Fusion and Eric Bischoff bought it, and Rob Van Dam had a run at the top of a major company that he didn't sabotage himself by having pills in a car with Sabu. But, you know, we'll get into that another time.
And then, ironically, literally after that happened, I was there for Van Dam losing the title, ironically.
Front match.
Yep. I was there for that.
Yeah. And TNA doesn't count because that was TNA at its lowest point. He came in right away and beat AJ Styles for the TNA title. Like, get the fuck out of here.
That was another dark period in pro wrestling history, we are in right now with this show. But guys, I think now is the time that we've talked enough about all the news that was heading in and out. I think let's just get on in there. Mac, would you like to lead the way?
Yeah, so this show opens up with a cold open of DDP's words to Scott Steiner for the main event. DDP says, I'm still standing. I'm the last hero of this company. No Goldberg, no Sting, no Kevin Nash. They've all fallen. It's almost over, but DDP stands in Steiner's way. Decent stuff compared to the crap that they've fed us over the years. You know, I mean, a lot of people buy into, I mean, I remember at the time I was 19 watching a WCW on life support saying like, no, dude, you still got Booker T. Right there. What are you talking about? Like Diamond Dallas, you're like 41 years old at this point. Like Booker T is young. He's in his early 30s. Like, what are you doing? Right. You know? And then eventually, you know, the last second they pull out of their hat, oh, hey, it's going to be a unification match at the last WCW Monday Nitro. But yeah, so it was a good setup for the main event. If you totally disregard that Booker T wasn't waiting in the wings, you know, you could have thought, oh, man, Scott Steiner's going to leave the company with this title. You know, hey, there he is.
There he is.
There's the man. Booker T's the fucking man.
He is.
But, yeah, so to open up Greed 2001 pay-per-view, we had what on paper does not look very entertaining.
No.
Doesn't sound appealing at all.
For a lack of better term, it sounded like a piece of shite. But we had Jason Jett, Jason Jett, for those who don't know, was easy money in ECW versus Kwee-Wee.
You say that out loud and like, this is the opener?
Yeah. And it's funny because Kwee-Wee is back from the edge of the universe because we haven't seen him in a couple of months in WCW. Like, he just shows up during this match. There's no Kwee-Wee Jason Jett feud that we can go back and do a My Way promo to or anything like that, you know? But
I remember too, like WCW was well known for those random matches that were just thrown together and added to the pay-per-view for no reason. Yeah. And I personally love that about WCW, and this was as randomly thrown together as you could imagine.
Yeah. But everybody's surprise, including mine, and I'm sure you guys in the room, this match was pretty fucking sweet. This match was great. Besides, you know, Doc Brown hair Kwee-Wee, you know, but yeah, this match had some really innovative moves that guys other than like, you know, maybe CZW that was just starting or a ECW were really doing towards the end when they were like focusing on, you know, when all of the guys were pretty much like Rhino was pretty much taking a back seat and they were pushing the undercard guys and they were going out there and killing themselves. But yeah, man, this match was awesome. There was one point in the match where Kiwi misses a dive, and Jason Jett runs at Kiwi, grabs his head, does a handspring elbow off the ropes onto the outside, and just dumps Kiwi right on his stupid head on the outside. I was in my car at work watching on my iPad. I went, holy shit. And thinking that it's 2001, I'm like, wow, that was an innovative move. I was like, this is crazy. Then in the middle of the match, they just start just throwing hands with each other. I'm like, dude, like Kiwi's like awesome, dude. Like they're just throwing like standing forearms with each other. Yeah. They're getting 2 counts. There was one point in the match where I started to notice this in a lot of WCW shows leading up to Greed, and I think it might have started maybe around the end of like right around the beginning of 2000, where the referees are just not about low blows. Like they just don't care about low blows in the match, because Jet low blows Kiwi as Kiwi goes for a pile driver, and that's the babyface low blowing the heel. And this match was just awesome. You had Northern Light suplex by Kiwi. They bang heads. They do a double down. Jason Jett invents the buckshot lariat.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the middle, dude. So Kiwi sends Jason Jett over the top. Yeah.
Right.
Kiwi sends Kiwi sends Jett over the top, a la Shawn Michaels, like he did to Shelton Benjamin before he hit that awesome super kick. But instead of going for a springboard, Jason Jett just flips over the ropes. Kiwi turns around and he just necks him with this buckshot lariat. And Kiwi does a really like awesome sell spot. And it was awesome, man. You know, Kiwi, so the ending of the match came when Kiwi was on the top rope and missed an elbow. Jason Jett calls for the crash landing and wins the match. And they get a standing ovation at the end of the match from this crowd that, you know, was used to watching. So when they get a little bit of not shit, be pretty entertained. It's not bad, you know. Jet seemed to have something in him, you know. But my takeaway from the match was that we was keeping up with Jet. Jet needs to sell a lot better and slow down a little bit. Like he's used to the ECW style of wrestling where you get hit with a big move and get right back up. It's kind of like a, you know, and I'm not throwing shade at him because I love him, but it's kind of like a Will Ospreay match where he'll get hit like a top rope Falcon Arrow, then pop up and hit the hidden blade, you know, and it's an awesome spot. But it seemed like every time Jet got hit with something big here, he got right back up, unless it was Kiwi like jumping on him and like stretching his face out on the ropes or putting him in a headlock or putting him in some sort of move. But I was entertained, you know, despite the erratic wrestling by Jet. I could have seen Jason Jett really becoming something of a like lower mid card guy if WCW had continued. But out of 5 stars, I gave this match like a good 3.25 stars. I thought it was really good. What did you think, Nick?
You know, the biggest thing I wrote down, and I didn't really take many notes on this match in particular because I just watched it because I was honestly off guard by how good it was. Because again, I hear Kiwi versus Jason Jett, I'm like, oh, great. But no, this was a solid match, and especially a solid opener at that. And out of 10, I gave this a 7 because I'm like, wow, this match had no business being as good as it was. Shout out to both these guys for starting off the final pay-per-view with a banger. You could tell like these guys really wanted to showcase what they can do, because here's another point to remember. There's a lot of uncertainty backstage in the locker room at this point in time. So a lot of those lower echelon guys, they are trying their hardest to put on a show because they don't know what's going to happen with their contracts. They don't know where they're going to go. So they want to impress any and all promoters out there that might be watching this. And in particular, I think it's worth noting too that Kiwi and Jason Jett were indeed 2 of the wrestlers whose contracts were picked up by WWF, and both guys were sent over to one of their developmental territories. I believe it was the HWA Heartland. And unfortunately, nothing much really came of these guys. I think they maybe jobbed a few times on like the C shows, but apart from that, you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, we really didn't see much more from either of these guys. Seldom, I'd say maybe like a couple early TNA appearances. So I wish there was like a little bit more, because both guys really, I'd say, were impressive, and I would have loved to see more of what would have happened in Mac. Like you were saying, like just imagine if
Yeah.
WCW was still around and these guys were able to have a shot. Like I'm not saying they would have made it to like Rey Mysterio levels probably, but
Yeah.
every cruiserweight division in WCW, for every Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrera and Psychosis, you've
Yeah.
also got your Cyclopes and your Damians. So you kind of need those like lower echelon guys, but that doesn't mean they were bad wrestlers by any means. They could always go. And I'd say that with these two guys, they could go. And again, solid opener. I rated this 7 out of 10. Robbie, what did you think?
Yeah, what you guys were saying, like the match itself was pretty shockingly pretty good. Like work wise, like you seen Jason Jett at one point hit Kiwi with a fucking apron going into the apron and giving him a DDT off the apron.
Yeah.
Which at that time nobody was doing DDTs off the apron like that.
Yeah.
Which now we see Jack Perry doing that on a fucking daily basis. But however, for what it was, both technically sound awesome. My only takeaway was, for me, it was a little too long. I felt like those guys didn't need that much time, considering it wasn't a match that was properly billed. This was a match that should have been at least on Thunder. But however, they got their spotlight in. Out of 5 stars, I gave this a 2.75. It would have been a 3 if it wasn't too long, in my opinion. There were some points for me where some of this stuff was dragging on a little bit. I don't know if it's because of the energy of me wanting to not watch Greed, or it was just from that. But otherwise, awesome stuff, man. From the buckshot lariats being hit. Jason Jett definitely proved why he was picked up by WCW from being in ECW under the name of Easy Money Kiwi. Wish we could have saw a little bit more of Kiwi in WCW as well. I felt like that Kiwi wasn't utilized more properly in that world, but it is what it is. 2.75 for me.
So, Nick, just to give the people at home a little taste of what Meltzer thought of it, he gave it 3 3/4 stars. The match went 12-15. If anybody's wondering what happened to Jason Jett after WCW closed, his real name is Jason Boyles, and after WCW closed, Boyles remained with WCW until it was purchased by World Wrestling Federation in late March. His contract was picked up by WWF, and he was signed to a 1-year deal. He was sent to Heartland Wrestling Association, one of their developmental territories. In HWA, Bortles won the promotion's heavyweight championship twice before being released from his contract in July of 2002. When he was released from WWF, he made a few appearances in Total Nonstop Action and early Ring of Honor shows in 2002. He returned to Frontier Wrestling Alliance, where he started his career under Easy Money, before retiring in 2003. He came out of retirement in 2007 and worked the independents until 2008 and retired again, and then came out of retirement again in 2023, where he wrestled for Happy Valley Ninja Warrior Wrestling in Elizabethtown, Tennessee, where he wrestled Heath Slater in the main event of Beside the Ring for the Beside the Ring Championship and lost when Special Enforcer Buff Bagwell used a pair of brass knuckles on him.
That is so random and wild.
Yeah, so listen to this. November 23rd, 2024, Money returned to Beside the Ring, defeating Happy Ninja Warrior in Elizabethtown, Tennessee. Later in the main event, Money accompanied Evan Golden in the match against Heath Slater for the Beside the Ring Championship, where Money was contractually obligated to be handcuffed at ringside. Money ended up getting interfered in the match, broke free, and was blindsided by Buff Bagwell, allowing Golden to use the brass knuckles to beat Slater. And that was the last time.
Is Vince Russo booking for this promotion? Because this, what? Money handcuffed to what?
He was still in the wrestling business up until November 3rd, 2024. And then it says in December of 2024, Bortles, Easy Money, Jason Jett announced his retirement from professional wrestling for an unprecedented 3rd time. So let me hold up the 3 like The Rock.
Oh, man. That's what Easy Money was doing. And Robbie, to your point, too, with how long this match felt, I was going through the match times on here. This was, on a 10-match show, the 4th longest match on the whole card. And this was something that was just thrown together.
And honestly,
Shane Shane Helms and Chavo Guerrero got 13 minutes 20 seconds, and this got a minute less than that.
And I'm also going to say this too. They could have shaved that time off on that too to give us more time in the main event between Steiner and DDP as well.
Yeah.
Because for this being the last pay-per-view, Steiner and Diamond Dallas Page needed a little bit more time, and I wonder why, because of the first match.
Yeah, they only got 14-13 in the main event, and the longest match of the night actually was, let's see here, was Shane Helms defeating Chavo Guerrero 13:55. Longest match, that was the second longest. The longest was 14-13 with the main event.
Yeah.
But they needed more time. You're absolutely right. But moving on, we got the hold on, I just lost my spot. My apologies.
Cruiserweight tag team
we got the cruiserweight
finals?
the tournament finals for between Kid Romeo and Elix Skipper versus Rey Mysterio and the Billy Kidman.
The Kid Man.
Yeah, the Kid Man. Yeah. I mean, expect out of four of the best cruiserweights in the division. I think going into this, a lot of people thought that Romeo wasn't going to be able to hold his weight, but man, this match was incredible. I felt like it was a little bit too long and it was dragging at spots, and there were a couple of false finishes at the end where they had already done false finishes where I was like, oh man, there was one where Kidman hit the shooting star press and it looked like he was going to win, and then Romeo came in and hit Kidman in the back of the head at 2.99999. It was just all the stuff that you would expect out of Rey Mysterio, Bronco Buster, Hurricanranas, top rope moves, springboards. It was just a great match. What I took away from this match is that you could see Elix Skipper developing into what he would become in TNA with Triple X, with Christopher Daniels, and what would lead to that just great run of Triple X in TNA. If people don't know, Elix Skipper is the one who infamously did the cage walk and did the Hurricanrana to AMW in the losing team must disband cage match for the TNA Tag Teams Championships on TNA Impact. Man, this match was great. The ending saw Skipper and Kidman tumble to the floor. Mysterio tried to springboard off the second rope with the moonsault, and he got hit with the last kiss by Romeo, and that was the end of that. And the new, and I think only second, I think there was only one other champion. I think it was Rey Mysterio and Kidman beat them on the last Nitro, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the next week, Kid Romeo and Elix Skipper over the Filthy Animals for the WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team Championships. Like I said, I thought this match was a little bit too long. They didn't need to do a couple false finishes here, but in the match, they proved why you don't powerbomb Billy Kidman.
Yep.
Because he always turns it into a face buster.
Always.
Which actually happened almost twice in this match, but Billy Kidman actually flipped out of the second power bomb attempt by Primetime. But man, the championships are ugly. The company was rebranding. Wasn't the smartest idea for new championships to be introduced.
I do like that kind of the wings and the leather though. That part's cool.
Yeah. So my big takeaway for it was, Mysterio seemed super motivated by this, as did Kidman. They seem to be super into it. You see a lot of guys, especially, at the end, like in ECW, when ECW was ending and a couple of those final shows, you see guys like mailing it in, but for a team that was told that they're going to lose, and this is possibly the last WCW pay-per-view, which it ended up being, they seem super into it, man. They didn't hold anything back. They're always great. Kidman and Mysterio chasing the championships made sense. Like I said, they eventually win them a week later, 8 days later, at the last WCW Monday Nitro on the beach where Shane McMahon shows up. Overall, I gave this match 4 stars. I thought it was good. like I said, a couple of too many false finishes, and it was kind of sloppy at some points with Romeo in the ring with Rey Mysterio, who was considerably faster than him because Romeo was a little bit of a bigger cruiserweight, still a cruiserweight, but just a little bit of a bigger guy.
Oh yeah,
But yeah,
he was so muscular.
Yeah,
He had a
he
good
looked like
physique on him, yeah.
he looked like a smaller Big Vito to me.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he looked exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but I gave the match 4 stars. I mean, come on, guys. It's Billy Kidman. It's Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
It's fucking primetime Elix Skipper. And say what you want about Kid Romeo, like he fucking held his own in this match, and it was great. But yeah, it was one of those matches where I was really looking forward to it, and it didn't disappoint. It went 13 minutes and 42 seconds, and oh, hey, look at this. Meltzer also gave it 4 stars.
Rightfully
Nick, what did you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say rightfully so. This was if later on, if Sugar Shane Helms and Chavo wasn't my match of the night, this absolutely was. All 4 guys went out there and they went out with a bang. Like if this was going to be the last match that any of them had in WCW, which thankfully it didn't, I'm glad that they all wanted to show what they could do. And again, I went into this pay-per-view not thinking that there were going to be any matches that I would give any ratings 7 or above. Kwee and Jason Jett was a 7 out of 10. This one I gave 8.5 out of 10. I might even bump that up now that I'm thinking about it, now that I've slept on it, to even like a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed this. All 4 guys showed that they could go. It's a shame we really didn't get much more in wrestling from Kid Romeo. I know he's had like a little bit of a run in TNA, but I always felt like he was such a perfect like WWE guy. I do believe Romeo's contract was also picked up for the people that were in the buyout. Not sure if much happened with that, unless
Let me see. I'm looking at it right now. Following WCW's closure, Romeo traveled to Puerto Rico to wrestle for World Wrestling Council. He made some appearance in Total Nonstop Action, making his debut on July 10, 2002 in a 6-way elimination match with Tony Mamalu, Christopher Daniels, Primetime Elix Skipper, Jerry Lynn, and Low Key. Although Romeo was eliminated after Low Key forced him to submit, he returned to TNA and stayed there until 2004, competing in the X Division. He was there. He returned to TNA for the final time on May 17, 2005, where he lost to Zach Gowen. Lost to a guy with one leg and then left the company. He then took a hiatus from wrestling and subsequently began working as an exterminator.
Wow.
In 2008, Romero returned to wrestling as Romeo. Well, it says Roman returned to wrestling as Romeo. He wrestled for NWA South Atlantic, last having a match on November 15th, 2008. Following the loss, Romero retired from professional wrestling for good.
Wow. Because, oh man, like I'm looking at the 4 guys in this match and I'm thinking, I know for a fact Elix Skipper was also signed to developmental, but he surprisingly wasn't there for too long before he left. And quite frankly, it's such a shame that WWE at this time never really cared for their cruiserweight division, because look at the amount of talent that WCW had that they were able to get. And oh man, imagine if they did care, how banger SmackDown in 2002 would have been. I mean, it was from when we watched it with Heyman at the helm, and it just could have been so much better with so many awesome talents. But yeah, I had to give this match 8.5 out of 10, heavily leaning to making it a 9. You know what? I'll do it. I'll make this a 9. This was such a great match. I enjoyed it. Don't care for those titles, but Robbie, what did you have to say for this match?
You know, I was going to give it a 3.5, but like you guys said, I was also sleeping on it. I got to bump it up to a 4 as well. I mean, you had really great talent in this match. All 4 of these guys, especially with Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman, what did we expect from this? It was going to be fun. It was going to be high flying. I had no notes down because I just wanted to enjoy this match. It could have been a 5 for me if it wasn't for a Cruiserweight Tag Team title. Because definitely at this point in time, we all knew what was going to happen after this. Why bring in new titles now when you could have brought it back way back in 1997 when you were starting this whole Cruiserweight division up? But however, like we said, a little bit with Kid Romeo, I did not know much about him because I didn't remember him until this match. Like, I totally forgot that he was even a wrestler for WCW, let alone a professional wrestler in itself. But Elix Skipper was what Nick was saying as well. When you look at what Elix Skipper was able to do in TNA, if Vince McMahon would have actually cared about the cruiserweight division in a whole, primetime Elix Skipper would have made his way into WWE and probably would have been a cruiserweight champion. Because of the fact of the matter is that Elix was so good. And the funny thing is, we don't even know where Elix Skipper is at this point. I haven't heard anything or seen anything. I don't even know he's retired because I want to see more primetime Elix Skipper. Elix, if you were casually watching this in front of us, how about you come back into the spotlight of professional wrestling so we can see your moves once again at some point?
Yeah, he retired.
Elix Skipper.
He retired in 2000, May of 2008, Robbie, after he was released from TNA. So now get this, guys. So I didn't know this, but Wikipedia says in March of 2001, World Championship Wrestling closed and was purchased by the World Wrestling Federation owner Vince McMahon with a number of wrestlers, including Skipper, who had been signed to a developmental contract. Now get this. Skipper made his television debut early into the Invasion angle in a backstage segment as a member of the Alliance. I don't remember this at all. It said in November of 2001, the WWF assigned Skipper to Heartland Wrestling Association, a WWF developmental territory, with the promise to bring him back. He trained in HWA for 9 months, competing in multiple matches before being released in 2001 in December. It said upon his release, Skipper... but get here, listen to this. Elix Skipper is fascinating. Upon being released from the WWF, Skipper contacted the Great Muta. A veteran Japanese wrestler had previously invited Skipper to wrestle in Japan before Skipper decided to sign with WCW. Elix subsequently traveled to Japan to perform at All Japan Pro Wrestling, where he wrestled while alternating back and forth between TNA and All Japan Pro Wrestling, using the name Dark Guerrera and as a masked wrestler named Extreme Blade.
Wow.
It says Skipper left All Japan Pro Wrestling in 2003 and signed with Total Nonstop Action full-time, where he wrestled from 2002 to 2006, and then from 2007 to 2008, where he subsequently retired from professional wrestling in May of 2008 after being released by TNA. Wow. So he was a member of the original Alliance. I don't have an inkling of that.
I know a few of the guys because I remember Lash LaRue was also on that early team, and Kaz Hayashi. Hayashi also was for a very brief time. And I'm looking on his cage match, and even like in HWA, they had their own sort of invasion running. Team WCW on here was Elix Skipper, Evan Courageous, Easy Money, Kwee, and Lash LaRue.
Dude, I want to watch some Heartland Wrestling now. Fuck.
Honestly.
Dude, I want to see
you find it.
Honestly, too, I'm looking at the Kaz Hayashi, Kid Romeo's here, Jimmy Yang's here, Reno's here, Shannon Moore's here. You got a lot of WCW talents throughout the card here.
So that was, I was listening to a Wrestling Observer from around like 2002, a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about Evan Courageous, like being like one of the best wrestlers in the cruiserweight division that WCW had. Even when he was having his feud with Medusa, like he made the best of it. And then all of a sudden he just never shows up in WWF. But what happened was he actually went to, I believe HWA, got like a really serious concussion, like a really bad one, and was just like, yeah, my life's not worth this. I'm out of here. And just like left the business forever.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
which was crazy. Yeah. But okay, so now we are going to get into the shit part of the show. Where we had Stasiak accompanied to the ring by the gorgeous. Let's just put it out there. The gorgeous, at the time, 21-year-old Stacy Keibler. Going up against the very past his prime, and I hate to say this, Bam Bam Bigelow. This match was terrible.
Even Miss Hancock couldn't save it.
Yeah. Stacy was returning from her pregnancy angle, where it went absolutely nowhere, and no one gave a damn. Sean the Star, Stasiak, Mecca of manhood, call him what you want. There wasn't enough hot women in the world to make Stasiak interesting or entertaining in the ring. They just wrestled. Bam Bam moved around and did some things. Jawbreaker on the floor. Bigelow meets the steel steps. Crossbody and a pose by Stasiak. Basically, all Stasiak did was pose this match and kiss Stacy and hug Stacy in this match. Bam Bam gets the upper hand, diving headbutt for 2. Stacy gets up on the apron, distracts Bigelow. Stacy takes hairspray out of her hair, and Stasiak sprays it in the face of Bam Bam Bigelow, hits the neck breaker, and wins. Hairspray finish is appropriate for a failed Rick Rude gimmick. Stasiak might be one of the most. Stasiak might be one of the most boring wrestlers inside the ring. Nothing could save this match with the boring Stasiak and Bigelow, who was phoning it in for the money. Crowd was silent, not only for the finish but the whole fucking match. This was a dud. This sucked. Kill WCW. Get it out of here now.
Yeah, no, this is the match where I feel like this is what I was expecting from this show when I first watched it. Yeah. And I was pleasantly surprised with how great the last 2 matches were. So then when this happened, I first go into it like, wow, Stasiak's jacked and, Stacy's awesome per usual. And then, it's cool seeing Bam Bam here again because I'm trying to think, was Bam Bam on any more wrestling pay-per-views after this?
No, honestly,
I can actually look it up.
Because here's another point I want to bring up. At this point, Bam Bam's about a 15-year veteran in wrestling at this point in time. And yeah, it doesn't feel like there's much left in the tank for Bam Bam. It feels like he's just kind of given up. And it's wild, too, that Stasiak becomes one of the people that goes to WWF after the buyout. But I have another little point of trivia here. Can you guys believe that we're about to get this very match of Stasiak versus Bam Bam Bigelow 2 more times over the next 8 days in WCW TV?
Ugh. God. All right, so here is the last of Bam Bam Bigelow. After World Championship Wrestling was purchased by World Wrestling Federation in March of 2001, Bigelow opted not to accept the buyout of his contract with Time Warner. He was one of the performers considered by the newly formed NWA Total Nonstop Action promotion in 2002, but was unavailable due to his contract with Time Warner still being in effect. After his contract expired, Bigelow returned to the independent circuit. He wrestled sporadically, appearing in promotions like Northeastern United States Wrestling. In September 2002, Bigelow wrestled in Germany. He took a brief hiatus until 2004, where he announced he would no longer take major bumps or chair shots in fear of exasperating his health problems. He wrestled his final match on November 7, 2006, 10 weeks before his death, for Florida-based American Combat Wrestling promotion, teaming with Ralph Mosca as the Syndicate to defeat Overkill, Legion Cage, and Marcus Hall for the ACW Tag Team Championships. The title were vacated later that month when Bigelow was announced by the company that he could no longer compete in the ring, and Bigelow was found by his girlfriend dead 10 weeks after that match in his home in Hudson, Florida, approximately around 10 a.m. that morning on January 19, 2007. He was 45 years old. An autopsy found that Bigelow's death was due to multiple drugs found in his system, including toxic levels of cocaine and barbiturates. A contributing factor to Bigelow's death was androscoliosis. His death was ruled an accident by the Pasco Polines Medical Center.
Man, that is rough. 2007 was such a bad year for losing wrestlers, especially a lot of our WCW favorites over the years. But it was pretty cool that Bam Bam was able to get that sort of career resurgence in WCW, because once, he left ECW, and then we see him here because he's not going to want to go back and deal with Shawn Michaels and all the bullcrap from the Clique. He had enough of that. Yep. But, he goes over here, and, from 1998 onwards, honestly, I enjoyed Bam Bam Bigelow's time in WCW for the most part. The Jersey Triad was really fun. Him working with Canyon and DDP was solid. Yep. It's a shame that they kind of ended that. That's another one of those WCW things where they ended such a cool storyline and faction way too early. But it was nice to be able to have like that kind of final hoorah for Bam Bam, seeing as this is his last mainstream pay-per-view, really. I mean, I'm just looking at his matches on Cage Match, and he doesn't really have many more big matches. I mean, he does some on the independent circuit, but I mean, pay-per-view wise, it sucks that we kind of go out like this,
Yeah, Cage Match gave this match a 3.56 out of 10.
Out of 10, I'm giving this a 2. Did not care for it. I did like the little gimmick, though, of leaving a signed 8x10 with your abs all on
Oh,
it on
yeah.
your opponent. That was great. So I do want to give
Yeah.
a shout out to that. But Robbie, what did you think?
Yeah, this was a fucking dud. I gave this a 1.5 stars out of 5. Unfortunately, the only thing with me is at least Bam Bam could do what he was able to do, which you can tell too. It was with Bam Bam, it was like watching Yokozuna late in his career. You could tell something was definitely off because it wasn't the normal Bam Bam that you were used to seeing when he was facing Taz in ECW or wrestling Bret Hart in the WWF. It was just one of these things of I never cared for Sean Stasiak as well. Stasiak was a boring wrestler, in my opinion. He had the look. He had a tad bit charisma, but he could never. I think just looking at Sean Stasiak, you just knew he was never going to fill his father's shoes. Which, for those who don't know,
Right.
Sean Stasiak's dad was the legendary Stan the Man Stasiak, who was a worldwide wrestling federation champion for Vince Sr. back in the 70s. But however, not much here. It's just hard to see somebody, especially with Bam Bam, when you can start to see that there was a little bit of health issues going on with Bam Bam. And what Mack had said, it confirmed what exactly I thought it was. That he was starting to begin his health issues, most likely at that point in time. And it's probably why nobody wanted to pick him up onto a mainstream thing. Because 6 years later, he passes away. Even though, yes, there was drugs involved, yes. But at this point, he was definitely not in a physical fitness. What the words I'm looking for? He was definitely not fit to ever wrestle.
Healthy.
Yeah.
Also, Sean Stasiak is one of those cases where you can have the look, you can have the charisma, and you can have all the tools, but if you can't put all of those things together, you're going to fail. And Sean Stasiak was one of those guys that had everything, but he just couldn't find his way. And also, just a little bit of a side note. I know that we're time crunched tonight, but Sean Stasiak was fired from the WWF after it was revealed that he was taping all of his conversations in the locker room with people without their knowledge. So that's just a little bit of a tidbit for you guys. And also, there was also
Stasiak.
And also there was a thing back in the day where Sean Stasiak in 2003 called a radio show that he had been calling for years and said he was returning to the WWF. And I guess the radio show host had went out and not tweeted it, but said something on his MySpace or Facebook. And then Sean Stasiak called another radio show and said, "No, that wasn't me. That's a fake Sean Stasiak. He's not talking to the real Sean Stasiak." But the guy who was on the radio show knew Sean Stasiak personally and knew it was him because it was his phone number that he had for years and years and years. So when Sean Stasiak had him, he's like, "No, I never went on that radio show and said that. No, I never said it wasn't me and that you didn't know me." And they played the clip of Stasiak saying that on the guy's show, and Stasiak goes, No, that's an imposter. That wasn't me. That was an imposter. And the guy was like, "All right, Sean, we're fucking done with you here." So he was a little bit of a nut after he left the wrestling business, or while he was still in, but especially
he was a
after he left.
15-time hardcore champion, though.
Oh, Jesus Christ. What was Raven, like a 48-time hardcore champion?
Yeah, only surpassed by
Not more
R-Truth.
than R-Truth.
Exactly. R-Truth, the man with the most reigns.
Yeah. All right. So do we got any final thoughts on the Bam Bam and Stasiak shit sandwich?
No, but we're getting ready for another sandwich.
Oh, boy.
Skip.
Let me lean all the way back.
Skip. We're skipping this one. Nope.
So our next contest was a tag team match between Hugh Morris and Conan, taking on what you thought would be a great team of Lance Storm and Mike Awesome, Team Canada. Man, I hate to sound like the Deadlock podcast, but this was my plus 10 of the night. I fucking couldn't do it. Guys, honestly, to tell you the truth, because I love the both of you and I want to be honest with you, I was in my car, I fell asleep, I woke up, the match was over, the next match was on, and I just looked at the notes and I went, nope, I'm not going back and watching this. So, the one thing that I took from what I saw was that Mike Awesome was just fucking. He's fantastic, man.
Mhm.
Like they dropped the ball so badly on him. Like I know that Awesome probably wasn't being paid in ECW, and he was pissed, and he was under contract, and he was the champion. But man, they made him to be an unstoppable monster. He was beating guys that were even his size. It wasn't even like he was just putting Spike Dudley through all of the tables at Home Depot every week. He was beating Rhino. He was beating Sandman. He was beating Tommy Dreamer. He was beating Just Incredible. He was beating all these guys. Then he goes to WCW, and he starts off great. You know, he wrestles Hulk Hogan. He beats Hulk Hogan in a hardcore match, and then Vince Russo and stupid Eric Bischoff got their hands all over him and turned him into the fat chick thriller, that 70s guy, and put him in Team Canada when he's obviously American. You know, it's just, oh man, this match was just terrible.
Yeah.
You know, it was just uninspired. The ending saw Storm kick Hugh Morris. Awesome splash, but Conan saves his partner. Morris German suplex, awesome, which looked pretty good. Morris is too slow for the no laughing matter, and Awesome nails the Awesome Bomb for the win, which was pretty impressive because he did get Hugh Morris's big ass up there. And Team Canada over Hugh Morris and Conan via the Awesome Bomb. On Cage Match, it gets 5.31, which I think is really too high. And the match went 11 minutes and 10 seconds. I give it a big thumbs down. Nick?
You know, that was 11 minutes and 10 seconds too long for this match. On paper, you know, you've got great technicians in Lance Storm and Conan, and then you've got great agile big men with Hugh Morris and Mike Awesome. And again, on paper, it looks great. This match wasn't like super terrible, but wow, was it not great at all. I don't remember Hugh Morris and Conan ever actually teaming apart from the Dungeon of Doom, so that was kind of interesting that they revisited that like how many years later. And honestly, when I'm thinking about it, like they should have either had just Lance Storm versus Conan, or just do Mike Awesome versus Hugh Morris and like separate the two. Or I'm thinking of wrestlers and teams you didn't have on the card. If you have to have a tag team match on here, like I'm thinking, get some Junkie Boys, get the Young Dragons on there. You have 3 count. They always kill it. Like pop them up against each other, and boom, you'd have another great cruiserweight tag match. Because I get, you had several cruiserweights earlier, and you got a cruiserweight title match coming up that you don't want to overflow. But man, this just didn't feel right, which sucks because again, you got 4 great talents in here who, all in their own ways, can be very entertaining. And when you've been watching WCW over the years, all 4 guys really have delivered. So it's just a shame that, again, this is just such a dud. And if I have to, think about out of 10, it was not nearly as bad as Stasiak Bigelow, but I got to give this a 3 out of 10. How about you, Robbie?
With me, this is definitely the worst rated match out of the whole night for me. This is a 1 star out of 5. What we had with Mike Awesome, Lance Storm, you guys touched on it. 2 ECW guys at Bischoff and Russo, I don't care who was booking, they should have done more with. And Awesome should have never been a part of Team Canada. He was an American. And Conan is another guy that WCW also folded with, because right after the whole thing with NWO and the NWO Wolfpack, they did nothing with Conan. And Conan was a huge star over in the Triple A promotion, or the AAA in Mexico, where he was facing guys like Perio Aguero in steel cage matches, being an absolute badass over there, to just being K-Dog at this point. And also, I say this part of news for this specific match, and one thing I definitely seen in the match, Conan, in my opinion, at this point in time, he was not with this match. You can tell by the stature that he was aggravated, that he was not really trying, because it was reported by Meltzer at this time too that Conan went in a Tijuana newspaper and said that he wanted out of WCW. He said this is allegedly, he said that he wanted to go to Vince in the WWF, but if WWF didn't want him, he would go back to Mexico. the time, though, he had beef with Antonio Pena and Paco as well. So that also was like a little bit of the thing, too. But because of the lack of effort from Conan's side, and obviously, honestly, if everything with Bill DeMott didn't come out like it did, I could have also been able to watch this match and be like, okay, cool. But after everything with what Bill DeMott, aka Hugh Morris, had come out with at his time being in the Performance Center, with all that stuff we're not going to get into, it's hard for me to watch Hugh Morris or Bill DeMott without just getting pissed off. So for me, it was just 1 star. Very lackluster. The only thing in this match is just seeing Mike Awesome hit an Awesome Bomb for me. I love seeing the Awesome Bomb every time because Mike Awesome was a certified badass that should have been handled better. This was just shit, and I wish I could have just skipped this match, and honestly, I wish this fucking match would have been scrapped.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, of Bruce Pritchard tell the story of him getting a phone call while he was on his way to Titan Towers to see Vince right around the time that WCW was being acquired by WWF. He gets a phone call on his car phone back then, for all you for all you fucking young kids. And he picks up the phone. He goes, "Hello," and there's a guy with a Mexican accent on the other side of the phone, and he's like, "Who's this?" "Yo, man, this is K-Dog. Yo, it's K-Dog. Yo, Bruce, it's K-Dog." And he goes, K-Dog.
Yes, I heard about
this. He's like, "Yeah, I want to come in, man. I want to come in. I want to train. I want to." And he goes, "Okay, well, yeah, you have my address, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Send me a tape." And he hangs up. And then Bruce goes, "Oh my God, K-Dog, it didn't dawn on me that it was Conan." He goes, "I've known Conan for 20 years. He goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "He probably would have gotten a chance to come into WWF like right around 2001, but he didn't know who he was." He goes, "And I didn't have a number to call him back." And then Conan later on his podcast tells that story, and he was like, "Yeah, I felt disrespected for years, but me and Bruce, we got back together, man. We talked, and like everything is good now." But like, just imagine a timeline where Conan came in like the 2001, like 2002 era of like, Raw and SmackDown and everything. It would have been cool, but Bruce was like, "I had no idea who K-Dog was."
I mean, you watch K-Dog in like 2002 TNA, he could still go at that point.
Yeah.
You see a lot of the guys like, when you see Rick Steiner in that era of TNA, man, he couldn't move anymore, but Conan still could, which is, just goes to show how great of an athlete he still was. And I know there's one point though that a lot of people do bring up is Max Moon. Remember, Conan requests all these additions to the outfit. Yep. And it's costing a lot of money. And this is at a time when $15,000 and business is kind of starting to decline a little bit for WWF, and they don't have the same money that they did in the 80s. And now he just up and leaves, not saying a single thing, takes all $15,000 of the suit with him. Yeah, Vince wasn't too happy with that. So he might have got through to Pritchard, but if he did, he'd still have to get through a conversation with Vince, which Vince has been known to, put things under the rug and bury the hatchet with some people. So, it could have happened, but man, I just picturing now like Conan and Ruthless Aggression era, that would have been fun.
Yeah. It would have fit perfectly in that era too, if you look at it. And the thing is we were just pointing that out, how he was looking good in TNA. It just shows when a lot of wrestlers are disgruntled and they don't try, we can see it. And then they go to somewhere where they feel like there's grass is greener on that other side. And all of a sudden, they just light up and they're back doing some of their best work.
Yep. Exactly. But getting back to the show, guys, we are back up.
Woo! Cruiserweight title, baby.
We're back up, but it doesn't last for long, so let's temper our expectations. So the next match is the
Mac, the Sugar Babies.
Oh, the Sugar Babies. The next match is the WCW World, and I love that they said this, the World Cruiserweight Championship match, with Shane Helms taking on the Chavito Heat, Chavo Guerrero, for the title. That was great, man. These are two guys. I always feel bad for Chavo because Chavo has lived in Eddie's shadow his entire life. And even though Eddie's been dead now for 20 years, he still continues to live in the shadow of Eddie. And I think it hampered his work a lot because people would look and go, well, he's not as good as Eddie. But you take Eddie out of the equation, you wipe Eddie from history, and you look at Chavo Guerrero's work in the wrestling business, he's one of the greatest cruiserweights that have ever graced the ring. He's one of the greatest. And
longest standing, too.
Yeah, and I just absolutely love Chavo Guerrero. But getting back to this match, Shane Helms had just broken away from 3 count. And it's one of those things where he's still dancing and he still has the sugar babies and everything. So even though he's broken away, he's still kind of in that looking for his own kind of identity.
Yeah.
But man, this match was awesome. Chavo's awesome. Shane Helms is awesome. The one thing that I took away from this match was that they were being really stiff with each other. Like Chavo was not being nice to Shane Helms just because he was fairly new to the business. And maybe Chavo knew that he was losing. So he was being a little bit extra rough. But
which is ironic because I think Chavo came into WCW with only like 12 matches under his belt.
I know, which is crazy. Kick. Shane Helms in this match could have easily been a finisher. Like he hits it at one point on Chavo, and Chavo kicks out at 2.99999. Like it was, I bid on it actually. They just did a lot of cruiserweight wrestling. Suplexes, gut wrenches, DDTs, suplexes, suplex off the top rope. The match ends when Chavo gets a little bit too big for his britches and attempts a vertebreaker, but Helms counters it for the vertebreaker himself. It just drops Chavo right on his fucking legendary head. And
vertebreaker always makes my heart sink.
Yeah.
Awesome.
If people don't know what the vertebreaker is, it's for our Ring of Honor contingency. It's a cop killer, gringo killer. That homicide used. I wouldn't say that it was a disappointing way for Helms to become the champion because I thought he deserved a little bit more fanfare, especially, with the crowd that really was kind of, up and down all night. But the vertebrator makes sense for his character. There was a lot of buildup for the Cruiserweight title. They were teasing it when he was in 3 count, which kind of caused a dissension between 3 count because, they all wanted to be equal and them thinking that Helms was a little bit too big for his britches. Yeah. Helms winning the title was a feel-good moment. Crowd really popped for it. Seemed really good. He's the whitest of white meat baby faces. Like, he's still, at this point right now, 3 years away from being the Hurricane?
Right, yeah.
And then after the run with the Hurricane, which just was awesome. Then he goes to SmackDown where he's the Cruiserweight champion, where he's Gregory Helms.
No, he's only like 6 months away from Hurricane.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Okay.
Because Vince was one who pitched that idea to him right when he jumped over with them and got the Hurricane greenlit. Because if you remember some of those early Cruiserweight title matches, Helms held that title as the Hurricane on SmackDown.
Right. Yep. And then he has the second life breathed into him around 2004 with the Gregory Helms with the glasses and the leather jacket.
2005, 2006. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I mean, I think this match was really good. But I also struggle with the fact of was this match exceptionally good? Or was this match good compared to the shit that we had just seen? Because coming off of back-to-back matches that went a combined 15 minutes, seeing something like this right after it kind of deludes your perception a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know what you thought, but Nick, I gave it 3.5 stars. What did you give it?
When I'm watching this match, I was thinking about that, but honestly, all in all, this was a great match. These two guys worked tremendously well together. 2 all-time great cruiserweights, and again, like I said, the Vertebreaker always makes my heart sink. I gave this a solid 8.5 out of 10. I think this was in just the right spot because otherwise, we think about the next couple matches, boy, we would have had just a bunch of bad ones in a row. So I'm glad we had this palate cleanser right there. But my biggest pet peeve was, why did Scott Hudson insult Gordon solely when he got that compliment from Tony Schiavone? Know your place, Scott Hudson. I don't care if you're in the FBI.
Yeah.
But yeah, I give this 8.5 out of 10. How about you, Robby?
For me, like I said, I get the whole perception thing on we had dud to dud, and then we have this here. But to me, this is the best match of the whole fucking night. To me, I would give this a 4.25 star, or even a 4.5, because you have two great young cruiserweights at this time. Chavo Guerrero being able to fill in his way of the boots of what his grandfather was able to do in Gory, and his father Chavo Senior, or Chavo Classic to some
Chavo Classic.
WWE fans out there.
Yes.
And seeing a very young Shane Helms, man, Sugar Shane, get that time in, getting that Cruiserweight Championship in with the Vertebreaker, which still is one of the best finishing moves of all time. I don't care who you are. That move is legit. If that hits you wrong, your vertebrae will literally break. That's why it's called the Vertebreaker, for crying out loud. Yeah. But otherwise, seeing those two get that spotlight, what they deserved on this pay-per-view, they had the correct amount of time for what they needed. What they were able to do was able to tell that story of Shane wanting to get that Cruiserweight Championship, and he got it. Chavo just being a Guerrero, being an absolute beast in that ring, in which we all know with the whole thing being an Eddie Shadow, but not even just being an Eddie Shadow, he was even at some points just being Rey Mysterio's punching bag for most of 2006 and then 2007 as well in WWE, who never really even had a proper mid-card title run with the Intercontinental or the United States title either. And that is the same with Helms here. Seeing these two guys go at it, well, that would show me that they should have done more with the Cruiserweight division. And also, Helms and Guerrero should have had gotten a lot more opportunities in the WWE as well.
And Robby, I think you're forgetting that Chavo Guerrero once defeated CM Punk to become the ECW World Heavyweight Champion as well. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what did you give this, Robby?
For me, I gave this 4.25 to a 4.5 stars. To me, this was the best match on the whole fucking card.
Right on.
We can get this one out of the way. It was very quick. So we had totally buffed the team of Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell. They became the number one contenders to the World Tag Team titles that are currently held by Sean O'Haire and Chuck Palumbo, the Natural Born Thrillers. Beating Chronic with the help of Mike Awesome at Super Brawl. They've been talking down to everybody, kind of bickering with each other. They took credit for, quote-unquote, retiring Goldberg. Luger cut a long-winded promo that went on for too long that Nick and I were talking about before the show went on the air. Nick said that he had read reports that Luger and Bagwell were not happy jobbing to O'Haire and Palumbo, and that this match was actually
8-minute match because it was supposed to be set for 8 minutes. They were very pissy that they had to lose in a competitive 8-minute bout, so they decided to take over and basically grab microphones and go into overtime, going into business for themselves to try to take up as much of that allotted 8 minutes as they possibly could. To which then in my notes I wrote down, is it any wonder why Luger never got the call and Buff got released only a few weeks into his WWF run?
Yeah. So my thing says Luger and Bagwell cut a long-winded promo. It goes on for far too long. Something seems off here, which obviously it did. The champions run into the ring. Bagwell taking one punch and staying down before Luger clotheslined Bagwell by mistake. Super kick for Bagwell and Luger, respectively. We have two Swanton bombs, and this match is over. It goes officially 53 seconds. Stay down in the middle of the ring and do not move, and it becomes clear that they were being punished and decided to be unprofessional little douchebags who did not want to do the job to the young talent. Luger had become much nicer over the years, as evident in shoot promos, while Bagwell was still a bitter piece of shit that and this was a disgrace. Shame on those two for making a mockery of the business that made them rich. They stayed down in the ring after a Booker T promo saying that the WCW United States title has been the one title that has eluded him his whole career, and he plans on beating Rick Steiner for it tonight. We come back, and Buff is still in the fucking ring, which is nuts. But guys, I'm sure you don't have a lot about this. Just a 53-second match. Yeah,
I gave it a solid womp womp.
Yeah, I gave it a dud. I thought it made. Yeah, I thought that O'Hare and Palumbo, they look strong here, but it was just a weird situation for everybody. So I think we're in all agreement on that.
Unfortunate.
We'll talk more about Sean O'Hare and Chuck Palumbo some other time, because those two, they were great talents, and especially what Chuck Palumbo was able to do with Billy Gunn in the WWE, and Sean O'Hare, who never really got his flowers as well, which did lead him to the wrong path. It's a shame with Sean O'Hare, but why did they have a problem with wanting to put those two over? Because those two were able to go, but I guess
they came in as WCW Tag Team Champions in the WWF, and they got squashed by The Undertaker and Kane.
Yeah.
But all right, so moving on. That was just disappointing and lackluster. But
speaking of disappointing and lackluster,
moving on, we had Kanyon versus the Cat. Kanyon had just come off of beating DDP at the last pay-per-view, and now must face one of their new top baby faces in the company, that being the Cat. I love the Cat for his dancing and his hilarious promos. As a top baby face due to stretching your roster thin. It's ridiculous, but he's fun. Kanyon has the Cat has Miss Jones, who got Kanyon cuttered by Kanyon a couple of weeks before. The Cat wants revenge. Kanyon takes an ass whipping in the beginning of the match. Dude, the electric chair drop that the Cat hit, fucking awesome. Kanyon is powerbombed by the Cat. Cat kicks Kanyon, is tossed to the floor. Kanyon meets the guardrail. Hot shot by Kanyon, is cut off by the Cat. They just wrestle from here after they get back into the ring. Clothesline, suplex, rocker dropper. Cat's back up. He reverses a pile driver into a Boston Crab. The Cat reaches the ropes. The Cat reverses an Irish whip. Massive feedliner, but Kanyon places his foot on the rope. Kanyon hurls the Cat to the floor. The Cat re-enters the ring, but Kanyon nails the Cat with his cast that he had on his arm. Kanyon knocks down the referee. Miss Jones is in the ring. The Cat grabs Kanyon. Miss Jones nails the Cat by mistake. Kanyon has Miss Jones. Miss Jones kicks Kanyon, turns around into the feedliner by the Cat, and the Cat wins. Nothing new and different. From the first time that I laid eyes on the Cat, I feel for Kanyon, a fantastic performer that always seems to be close to a push or something and then always gets knocked back down the card. The Cat was never going to rise above lower card comedy style matches, so I don't know what the point of this match was other than, Miss Jones getting a Kanyon cutter a couple of weeks before. I gave it a 1.5 stars. I think the Cat's entertaining, and that's the only reason why it got the 0.5 star. Otherwise, it would have got 1 star. So, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say that, Cat's entertaining. Canyon's a great wrestler. Just didn't really feel it with this match. And the other point, too, was M.I. Smooth, who some of you might know as Ice Train, was, also one of the people that was working with the Cat. He was the Cat's limo driver as M.I. Smooth and was another victim of the Kanyon cutters and Kanyon trying to just ruin the Cat's life. And honestly, anything with Ice Train has been entertaining. I love Ice Train. I thought he was always great. Yeah, in fact, I think it's going to be the 23rd. He'll have been gone for 1 year, so that's wild. Wow. And rest in peace, Ice Train. But, man, Ice Train, I felt like this would have been more of a fun match if it was Ice Train versus Kanyon. But it unfortunately wasn't, and too bad Ice Train retired. I would have enjoyed him in WWF. But 3 out of 10, didn't really care for this match at all.
Another thing, too, they showed a promo before the match of of Canyon giving the Canyon Cutter to Ice Train, and then Ice Train returning 2 weeks later and jumping in the ring and saving Miss Jones from Canyon again. And Ice Train got a huge pop when he
Yeah.
jumped in the ring, which was awesome because, Ice Train had a great career, but
He was very charismatic, and he had a great look and build.
yeah, and I felt like he really that was like the culmination of his career was getting that pop when he jumped back in the ring. So it was a massive pop too.
It
really
was.
Good pop. Yeah,
You'd think he was one of the top stars.
yeah, and he got in the ring and chased off Cameron and raised hands with Kat and Miss Jones. But yeah, it was great. But Robby, thoughts on the match if you have any?
For this part of the match, like you guys said, I honestly gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. Even though I actually do enjoy watching the Cat with his comedic gimmick and stuff like that, I actually enjoy that kind of entertainment in professional wrestling. And watching Chris Kanyon, who I personally love watching because I always thought that he was a good wrestler that should have gotten into more places.
Yep.
Depending on why he never got it, that's up to debate. Well, that's not the topic here. But the thing that I kept pointing into my mind is how the fuck do you break your wrist when you're punching somebody too many times? So I heard somebody on commentary literally sat there and say, he broke his wrist by hitting him too many times. I'm like, that's not even logical. You can't even you can break your hand doing that, but you can't really break your wrist punching someone. But otherwise, the only reason why I gave it a 2, and it's not a 1 or a 1 and above, it's because Miss Jones finally got her revenge.
Yep.
The story at least had a payoff, which is a huge thing in professional wrestling.
Yep. And a very rare thing in WCW.
The right person actually did win, but I wish there could have been more because you had 2 great talent in there that you could have allowed to pop off in this match.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen better, but I've certainly seen worse, and I think we saw worse on this show. So, wasn't that bad. But moving on, get to the WCW United States Championship match with the champion Rick Steiner versus just a fucking awesome Booker T, man. Booker T's so great. I fucking love Booker T, man. He's just how do you look at that guy and go that's not the guy? Nope, that's not the guy. We need to go with I don't know, a 42-year-old 42-year-old Diamond Dallas Page, but whatever. So this match was the bare minimum, and not by Booker T, because Booker T was trying to make this match something. Booker T was trying to make this match feel important, and to him it probably was because he had been WCW television champion, tag team champion, world heavyweight champion, but he had never been the United States champion. And usually when you have somebody who's already been the world champion, they don't give a shit about secondary belts after they've been the champion. Kind of like when Roman Reigns had been world heavyweight champion, and then he was the United States champion, and John Cena cut that promo and said, I took the United States championship as an opportunity to put over new stars. You took it as a demotion. Kind of like when Triple H was world champion and he won the Intercontinental title and became the 2-man power trip with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Kind of like that. But the thing is that Booker actually cut a promo, and he had done so on the previous Monday Nitro, which was pretty much the same him sitting backstage promo, but it was a different, part of the interview where he said that he was like, yeah, man, I've always dreamed of holding that belt, that beautiful belt, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, this really does feel important, But Rick Steiner just didn't come to play today. He just did not come to play. So aside from doing a chin lock, clotheslines, and basic body slams, and Booker trying to, hit the flapjack, do the spin-a-rooney, bookend, all of his signature moves, it just didn't seem like Rick's heart was in this, or he was too beat up. The finish saw Booker fire up with elbows to the midsection, flying forearm by Booker, spine buster, which kind of looked like shit because Rick didn't go up for it. Scissors kick by Booker T, flapjack with a spin-a-rooney. Booker nails the referee by mistake. German suplex by Steiner, which looked really good. He dropped Booker T right on his head, looked really good. Shane Douglas jumps out from the crowd, and Douglas knocks Steiner with his cast And Booker hits the bookend, and we have a new champion. Could have been a start of a face turn for Douglas in WCW. Would have been entertaining. The match was not entertaining to see, though. Steiner just doesn't
Obviously,
have it anymore. What was
and
that?
obviously we know why Shane Douglas never took that
Yeah,
liberty of going with WWE, and that had
yeah,
a lot to do with Vince and Shawn Michaels because Shane didn't want to deal with those two either.
yeah. But
Right.
I mean, I gave this match 2.5 stars, and I gave it 2.5 stars just based on Booker, because if it was Rick and, like, say, somebody else that couldn't move either, like, say if they did Rick and Bam Bam Bigelow, this would have been one of the worst matches of all time. But just because Booker T was in there, it was really good. I gave it 2.5 stars. I didn't enjoy it, but I did enjoy Booker winning the one title that he never won. He
Yeah.
becomes a Grand Slam champion in
Grand
WCW.
Slam, yep.
WCW Grand Slam champion, and
There you
Mm-hmm.
go.
yeah, going with my scale of 10, I gotta agree. I went with 5 out of 10 for this. For again, Booker T did everything he needed to do and then some for this match, so that's why the match is rated so much higher. But like, referee Mickey J had terrible selling. Steiner was just not in it. And Tony Schiavone and Scott Hudson looked like they were burnt out. Like, nobody else really seemed to care except for Booker T. And also, by the way, the red on his entrance was stunning. Just
Yeah.
everything about Booker T in this match was great. He was without a doubt the saving grace of this match. So he's why I'm giving this beyond a 1 out of 10. Because, like you said, Mac, if this was Rick versus Bam Bam, this would have been terrible. This would have been minus 10 stars. But because Booker T went in there, won that title, became Grand Slam champion, and was basically the stalwart. Because now, remember, longtime WCW wrestler Bobby Eaton was just released a couple months ago from all the budget cuts they've been doing. So when you think about it, Booker T was the long tenured stalwart wrestler. So the fact that now he's
Mm-hmm.
getting that reign as the Grand Slam champion on the final pay-per-view felt very appropriate. So all in all, I'm giving this 5 out of 10. Robbie?
For me, I'm actually gonna give this a 3.5 out of 5. I actually had a lot of fun. This is one of these things where sometimes in professional wrestling, being too predictable is the right business decision.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we touched on, Booker T at this point, he is the most over superstar aside from DDP in WCW at this time. He was a rising star. He was young. At this point, he was already a 4-time WCW champion. He made the United States Championship worth something by saying, "Yeah, I want this title. This is what I want. I want it to add it to my accolades. I've always dreamt about it." And also tying in everything with Shane Douglas versus Rick Steiner too. We knew at some point during this little feud between Rick and Shane that Shane was going to get involved, even though you didn't have to have that. But I guess with continuity of their storyline, you have to have Shane Douglas interfere again to build for a future match that never fucking happened. But otherwise, I also wanted to know if you guys actually caught this. Do you guys know what they actually called the scissors or the axe kick during that match from Booker?
Was it
The Ghetto Blaster?
The
Ghetto
Ghetto
Blaster?
Blaster,
Yeah,
yup.
Yep.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was one of the things I was like, oh man, wish
I
they would have
forgot
used
about
that
that.
WWE.
I forgot all
That was
about
so
that.
cool.
Did they call the Spine Buster the 110th Street Slam?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, dude. And you know what I loved about this too is Booker's theme with the putties from the Power Rangers of woo woo woo.
I
Yep.
love those. That
Yeah.
always is the thing that like sticks with me with ever the Harlem Heat theme song.
Dude, with the don't hate the player, hate the game.
Hit the game, yep.
Woo, da-na-na-na-na. I always see, I'm so fed pilled in that way. I always think of the can you dig it, sucker? Yeah.
And that's the only, honestly, that's why I gave my rating, because I just love watching Booker T. Especially during this time. How could you not hate watching Booker T?
That's my goat.
Hey, so what I'm gonna do on this match is I'm gonna give my feelings on this next match, and I'm gonna cut my camera for a second. I got to run upstairs and do something, and I'll listen to you guys give your review. But the next match we had was the tag team Kiss My Ass match between
Wrestling.
father and son Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair versus Ric Flair and Jeff Jarrett. Considering that Dusty and Ric Flair are in this match, I can safely say that Jarrett is in the perfect spot, but he was a mere afterthought in this match because you have the last WCW match ever. You have Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair in it. It's appropriate, but it's 2001 WCW, so you got to put the Kiss My Ass stipulation in it. This match was just a bunch of old guys 15 years past their prime doing their thing. Dustin seemed kind of out of place in this because it was more of a Dusty versus Flair thing, and Jarrett and Dustin were just kind of there. The ending saw Jarrett get a sleeper on Dustin. Shin breaker and Jarrett works the legs some more. Flair tags in. Dusty tries a small package and backslides for 2. Flair tags in Jarrett. Figure 4 by Jarrett. Dustin reverses the hold, but Jarrett reaches the ropes. Dusty comes in, bionic elbow on Flair. Jarrett saves him. Dusty clotheslines Flair and Jarrett. Dustin is the legal man. Jarrett low blows Dusty. Flair low blows Dustin. Flair and Jarrett try figure 4s, but both Rhodes kick Jarrett off of Flair. Dustin rolls up Flair and gets the win. And Dusty pulls down his pants and exposes the red underwear. We saw vignettes all night backstage of Dusty eating burritos and saying that he had to take a big giant shit. And Dusty sticks his face in Jarrett's sticks his ass in Jarrett's face, and he kisses the ass of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Pro wrestling, baby.
Yeah, so Dusty's fat ass hanging out got a bit. Dusty's Rhodes, I wrote in my notes, Dusty with his fat ass hanging out got a bigger reaction than 90% of the in-ring talent.
It's true, though.
Crowd only cared for Dusty and Flair, and that didn't last long. It was just a whole wave of nostalgia. Everybody in the audience felt like they were, but I'm sure everybody in the audience felt like they were teenagers again. Again, the Rhodes over the Magnificent Seven with a roll-up. I gave the match 2.5 stars because of Dusty and Flair. I thought that the stipulation and Dusty eating the burritos and having to take a big shit wasn't really needed, but it's whatever. It's 2001 WCW. They're dying in 8 days, so it's whatever. But yeah, I like the Dusty and Flair stuff with the significance of the last pay-per-view. So I'll be right back. You guys tell me what you think. Give me like 2 minutes.
All right, sounds good. But yeah, the match itself, the stipulation and everything, it's just a product of the time, unfortunately. Yeah. But, with how fun the match was, honestly, I gave this match a 5 out of 10. This match was horrible from a wrestling perspective, but everyone involved in one way or another really made up for that. And I think it's very appropriate that in the penultimate WCW pay-per-view match ever, you have Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes on opposite sides. That felt so appropriate. And then on top of that, you can even make arguments for, how appropriate it is to have Dustin, to have Jarrett, and even Road Warrior Animal as a part of this match in one way or another. And again, this is a shame knowing what we know now about, this era for Ric Flair, because it was his big burnout and depression era, because it just doesn't feel right seeing him dressed the way that he is. And because you see him in the the Hawaiian shirt and the slacks, like it doesn't feel like it's the Nate. But you know what? I'm glad that those two guys were able to go in there, and it feels like Flair was starting to have more fun with this. So I'm glad too with that and the Sting match that kind of helped to kind of get him back up and get him more energized, and then going to WWF later with Triple H helping to motivate and push him. But honestly, I think the crowd would have really loved this if we ditched the stipulation, have something really fun, like maybe like a stupid Texas bull rope gimmick for like 8 minutes with Dusty on one side, Flair on the other. And, just let them have at it, throw like whatever crazy stuff in there. It's Dusty and Flair. I mean, come on, you got to throw everyone in there that you can. But I think that would have been fun. But that being said, we didn't get that. We got the product of the time match, which again, the people involved made it fun. 5 out of 10. Robbie?
Yeah, for me, it was a 2.5 out of 5. Like you said, the kiss my ass stipulation, this wasn't needed. Nobody needed this. This was basically something they stole over what Vince was doing over the Federation at this point. But the thing too that bothers me is, like you said, everything with Rick. This was definitely his burnout time. This is way before he enters in the Evolution with Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista. But however, one thing I also do want to say too is if they did want to do a tag team match with Dusty and Dustin, where the hell's David Flair at? This should have been in the Flairs versus the Rhodes, not fucking Slapnuts Jeff Jarrett. As much as I love to watch Jeff Jarrett, if that was the case, then you should have just split Jeff and Dustin to go against each other. And honestly, for the last match in WCW, it should have been for at least Greed, if they knew this was the last pay-per-view, this should have been a one-on-one between Dusty and Rick one final time, whether it's at a Texas Bull Rope, whether it's a steel cage. Us WCW fans deserve one more match between Dusty versus Rick, because Dusty and Rick helped elevate what Jim Crockett Promotions was able to become, that made it so reliable and viable to Ted Turner to turn Jim Crockett Promotions into WCW. And Dusty and Rick really helped that with their rivalry in the 80s. And honestly, I just felt like that was just a slap in their face because of all those memorable matches that those two had against each other, whether it was your bull rope matches, whether it was your steel cage match, or even just your traditional wrestling match. Dusty and Ric Flair is what made WCW for what it was, and they should have had a little bit more respect on their name for this match. And it's a shame to say it was just a 2.5-star match because of how they booked it and everything, and Jeff Jarrett being in it. Dusty and Rick deserve more, flat out.
Yeah, I think Robby said it perfectly. They deserve more. But Robby, I think we talked about this before the podcast. I don't know if you were in yet, but the payoff of this match happened on the last WCW Nitro, which actually occurred 5 days after this, where Dusty comes out and cuts a promo and says that the stipulation of the match was that Flair would have to kiss Dusty's ass, and Jarrett was the one that actually kissed Dusty's ass in the match. So the whole 2-hour broadcast of Nitro is centered around Dusty saying these specific words: "You are going to kiss my fat, white, hairy ass." Okay? And Jeff Jarrett and Ric Flair flipping out backstage, and Flair in the ring going, "I'm not going to kiss your ass. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it." So, yeah, just like that. Yep. So,
spiky hair, Rick, too.
So the final segment of the night comes. Flair comes out to the ring, which I don't understand why you would do that if you're not going to kiss anybody's ass. Just fucking leave. You're the commissioner. So he the ring, and from the side of the stage, here comes Dustin Rhodes and his dad Dusty with a donkey. And they wheel out this donkey. Now, remember, Dusty had said, "You're going to kiss my fat, white, hairy ass." The donkey was not white. The donkey was barely hairy at the ass, because the donkey's, got hair on its back, but by its ass, it's pretty, it's hairy, but it's not as hairy. And I don't remember, I should have looked it up, but I don't remember if Flair actually ever did it. I don't think he did. So I don't think there was ever I think they might have stuffed his face into the donkey. Not really sure. Should have looked it up. I didn't, but you can go look it up on your own if you want to. But I don't think it actually ever really had a big payoff or anything. And they did this thing for a month. But that was WCW. They really didn't have a payoff to anything. Yeah. So any final thoughts on the father and son and father and pseudo-son match?
I don't have any thoughts there, but I do have one last bit of trivia to bring up that I just realized and read on here. Easy Money is the only wrestler to perform on the final pay-per-views for ECW and WCW.
Oh, wow. That's a good trivia.
That's
really good. Yeah. So to wrap up our show, because we're going to be watching SmackDown and then doing the SmackDown post-show after the 3-hour SmackDown.
Why is it 3 hours?
Well, they said, the Wrestling Observer newsletter said today it's going back to 2 hours in either May or June. So we only got another 5 months of this, Nick. So,
Man.
But
I thought Greed was bad.
Don't worry, I'll help out at one point. Don't worry.
Maybe someday.
Excuse me. Wrapping up, we had our final match of the night. We had the WCW World Heavyweight Championship being defended by Scott Steiner in a Falls Count Anywhere match with Diamond Dallas Page. And, of course, Scott Steiner comes out here with the #1 freak, Medeja, because he's the big bad booty daddy.
Holla if you hear him.
Holla if you hear him. He looks great with that belt. That belt looks fucking tremendous on him.
It does. That's the GOAT.
he's so awesome. He puts his foot on the bottom rope and goes, and they're like, yes, I do know. Go, Scott. But
give me the Steiner math.
Yeah. Live microphone.
Yeah. So, Ric Flair, you fat sumbitch. So the crux of this match was that Scott Steiner was running through everybody. He had ran through Nash, Sting, Goldberg, and Booker T, to name a few. DDP stood there, stood up to the battle.
He broke Sid's leg too.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yep. But DDP was the last of the guard to stand up to Steiner and end his tyrannical reign. This was a fun brawl. I don't give a shit. Say whatever you want about WCW Greed. Say whatever you want about Scott Steiner and Diamond Dallas Page at this time. This was a fun brawl, man. Like DDP goes into the crowd and, he comes out and Scott Steiner attacks him. They brawl into the crowd. They brawl beside the stage. They go through tables. They're using trash can lids. They're using anything they can find, man. They're using crutches. Steiner stole a crutch from a DDP fan and just beat the shit out of fucking.
Yeah, the DDP fan who's like all on his own in the aisleway.
Yeah, just beat the shit out of DDP with it. Steiner's bleeding. He's just throwing forearms at DDP and just smashing DDP right in his face. DDP deals at one point. DDP nails a DDT out of nowhere and goes for the pin. And you see the referee jump over Diamond Dallas Page, and he just goes. He doesn't know where to count because there's just like all paraphernalia on the ground. So he's going 1 and 2, and he doesn't know where to count. And Scott Steiner kicks out at 2. And I was thinking to myself, if Diamond Dallas Page had won the WCW heavyweight title with a count like that, I just would have been no. We're restarting the match. We're not doing that. But
imagine that's what ends the last pay-per-view,
dude.
Yeah.
So the ending of they brawl all over the place. At one point during the match, Scott Steiner goes over and gets, it looks like some sort of like sign that might have had something in it. I don't know if it was like a plate. Like, what was it, Nick? That he grabs from the fan that turns out to be Paul London.
I was gonna say I don't remember him grabbing. I do remember him like kind of pushing Paul London by the face. Just down.
Yeah, he grabs something from Paul London, pie faces him, turns around, and then hits DDP with it. It kind of looked like one of those old school like records, like a black like record.
Like a vinyl.
Like a vinyl, yeah, it looked like that. Because the guy on the other side had it, and he was holding it up for Steiner. Steiner went to go reach for it. The guy moved backwards, and then he walked over, and Paul London was sitting there in the front row, probably just about to get called up to Ring of Honor in a year. And he hits him with the black thing, and it like busts all over DDP's head. But yeah, just to
was it one of those
point out,
waitress plates that they used to use?
It might have been, yeah, because it was black and it shattered like right on impact. It hadn't even hit DDP's head yet, and it had shattered.
Because remember, they used those during the Falls Count Anywhere match with DDP and Randy Savage at Halloween Havoc in '97.
Yeah. So the finish of this match is Steiner blocks a Diamond Cutter with the low blow on DDP. Diamond Cutter, but Rick Steiner pulls out the referee. DDP planches onto Rick Steiner. DDP has the referee back in the ring. Scott is sent into Rick. Roll up by DDP for 2. Steiner cracks DDP with the championship. Now, I wanted to point out one thing, and I know we're crunched for time here, but did you guys see DDP gig, or did Steiner literally take the 10 pounds of gold and just smash him in his fucking head with it? Because he hits him, so he hits him, and then it shows a shot of Scott like throwing the belt down, and then they go right over to DDP, and his face is just gushing blood. So I don't know if he was on the ground and went like this really quick, or the punch right before that, he turned around and gigged like this, but it looked way too fast to be anything other than the belt cracking him in the head.
Yeah, Scott was being brutal, and it's almost like when you see him like not hitting too hard with the pipe, I'm like, I don't know if he would have done that, but at the same time, DDP was gushing way too much.
Yeah.
And plus, what we were discussing earlier, too, with the news, with them not wanting to work with each other on the house show, I wouldn't be surprised if Steiner got him for real, honestly.
A little extra something in there.
Yeah.
So the ending of the match saw DDP is bleeding everywhere. Boston Crab by Steiner. DDP reaches the ropes. Steiner recliner. DDP reaches the ropes again. Madeja distracts the referee, which I don't know why you need to do in a Falls Count Anywhere, no DQ match. Steiner batters DDP with the lead pipe for about 40 minutes. And hits another Steiner recliner, and DDP is out, and the match is over. Referee calls for the bell. Scott Steiner retains the title by referee decision. Solid main event, overbooked towards the end with Rick and all the pipe shots. But I think DDP showed a lot of heart in the match. He rallied a lot and needed that fire. I also like the story of Steiner being unstoppable monster. I would have liked to have seen the conclusion play out maybe on the final Nitro with DDP winning, but what we got with Booker T was really good.
Was a little bit more special.
Yeah. I gave it 3 3/4 stars. I love a fucking brawl, man. I thought it was really good. And especially Steiner just being Steiner. The pipe shot stopped it from being a 4-star match, but it was great.
That. I feel like that's
So-
look how easy I'm going. I couldn't have hit him super hard
dude,
earlier.
It was the equivalent. It was the
Him in the
equivalent
head with
as
a
bad as
sharp
Hogan.
belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
with the little dink chair shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He hit him in the face with a belt that has like engravings in it as hard as he could. So he's like, maybe
The
I just
ridges.
lay these. Yeah, maybe I just don't lay these pipe shots in. But yeah, I gave it 3 3/4 stars. Nick, to wrap up, WCW Greed, the final pay-per-view in history.
Gotta agree with you there. I gave it 6.5 out of 10. It was cool at the end to see the Steiner brothers posing together for one of the last WCW shows ever. It's a shame that we never really saw them together much after this moment. And, when you think about the Ruthless Aggression era, both guys could have easily covered up for each other's weaknesses. Jim Ross on his podcast even said that they had discussions with Rick Steiner to bring him in during the Ruthless Aggression period, but he just wanted to stay and watch his son, Braun Breaker's football game. So shout out to him for wanting to leave wrestling and be a father. But hey, all in all, this was a solid match. Like you said, Mac, I love a good brawl. 6.5 out of 10. Robbie?
For me, I gave this a 3 out of 5. It would have been pushed up to 4 if, like I said, if they would have shed that opening match and gave Steiner and Dallas Page a little bit more time and gave us a little bit more of this edge, because I felt like that needed more time. That was your main event. That was your main storyline that you were getting everybody in with Greed. They needed more time. But yeah, everything with the extra mustard onto the title shot, the weak pipe shots from Steiner recliner in for the win. This was a fun match. This was a falls count anywhere, street fight as you can get. WCW style. It wasn't like ECW or WWF at the time, but WCW style. For what it was, 3.5 star, and I thought that was actually, besides the overbooking, I felt like that was the way to close out if they knew that was their final pay-per-view at that time, to close it out with Steiner winning, so that way they could build for Booker to get the title to unify both of those championships, which gave you the better ending within a week time on the final Nitro.
Yep.
So it all built up to, at least in the end, the main guy who should have had it a lot longer than he did, which was Booker T.
Yep, and we get the last time also, speaking of which, we get Michael Buffer announcing the pay-per-view main event for WCW.
Yes.
And DDP retired after this and never went to WCW to be a stalker and never did a motivational gimmick speaker, and then
None of that.
Nothing
with a Hardcore Holly match.
He never faced Christian.
He just went on and did DDP yoga and saved a bunch of wrestlers' lives and became a really, really great person.
That is our canon.
Yeah, and Raven was never rich, and Jim wasn't his next door neighbor. It was the Sandman. It was all a dream. It was like the Wizard of Oz.
Mac,
was a figment
that
of
happened.
your imagination.
All right,
Nothing.
We know nothing.
Guys, final overall thoughts. I know we're running into SmackDown here, but last overall thoughts on Greed.
All in all, it was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was pretty fun at the beginning and the end, and a couple bits in the middle. Not too bad. If I had to give this again, like now that we've gone through it and talked about it, I'm going to be giving the show a solid 6 out of 10. It was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be for the last WCW show. I think a lot of people are just getting that revisionist history for how they rate it. But yeah, 6 out of 10 for me. Robbie, any final thoughts there?
For my final thoughts too, as you said, it wasn't as bad, but I'm going to go with 5 out of 10. A lot of matches in this card went a little bit too long. That affected the main event with Steiner and DDP and everything that had transpired through the shit that were served to the little gold mines we were served. It was a 5 out of 10. Not a bad show. It wasn't as bad as like WCW Sin or anything like that, but overall, it was. Will I say it was one of the worst WCW pay-per-views? Yes. Will I say it's the worst? No.
Yeah, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I think I said that at the top of the show. So we're running into SmackDown right now. Nick and I got to watch that because we got to be right back on here with you. So, Nick, why don't you take us out and take it away?
I will be taking us out. And hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us, Chad. This was WCW Greed 2001. We are going to be next month looking at another WCW pay-per-view. This one's a lot of the
Boys'
opposite
choice.
opinion.
Boys'
choice. Let's go.
Boys'
This is
choice.
the Chi-Town Rumble
One of
1989.
the
So many people say this is without a doubt one of, if not the best 80s WCW show. So I'm very excited for this as a Chicago guy. I know my buddies here are also very excited for that. So yeah, we can't wait for that. Please join us next month. Exactly. Thank you guys for voting on that as the number 2 choice. We'll be going on there, and we'll be popping a poll up soon for what we'll be covering in March. But hey, if you enjoyed hanging out with us, we're going to literally be on 3 hours from now for SmackDown. So hey, go and check that out. We'll see you in a bit. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.